It Ends With Us is about a character called Lily Bloom. While it has got the romance,
human experience, you know? I was telling them that, like, when you experience pain or trauma or darkness or sadness, that's your character. Or if you're light.
When Hollywood's golden couple goes to war, the headlines are supposed to tell the full story. But in this case, the real battle has been unfolding, where the cameras can't see, and it's far more dangerous than anyone imagined. For over a decade, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds have been Hollywood's golden couple. They're the pair that makes late-night hosts grin, red carpet photographers jostle for a better angle, and fans believe in the fairy tale of love in the spotlight.
It's out, and it is a doozy. Hello, my friend.
Ryan plays the wisecracking charmer, Blake the graceful starlet with a sharp wit. Together, they've built not just careers, but a brand. The Image, untouchable, unshakable. That's why the sudden appearance of Blake's name on court filings sent a ripple of disbelief through the entertainment world. This wasn't about a movie contract dispute or a harmless celebrity misunderstanding. It was a sprawling, high-stakes, legal battle. One that named unlikely opponents: Wayfair powerhouse attorney Brian Friedman.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it seems that evil has once again prevailed because a federal judge has just officially thrown
And actor-director Justin Baldoni. On paper, it looked like a case stitched together from random puzzle pieces. What did a lifestyle mega brand, a celebrity lawyer, and a beloved TV star have in common with Blake Lively? The deeper you looked, the stranger it seemed. Publicly, Blake's camp described it as retaliation, an act of aggression against her after she reported harassment. But behind the polished legal language, there were whispers that this case was never...
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we're going to have to rename this movie to It Never Ends because Justin Baldoni has
just about justice. It was about leverage, influence, winning the story before winning the trial. And then came the speculation that turned this from a Hollywood headline into a whispered industry scandal, that Ryan Reynolds himself was quietly orchestrating the war. According to those close to the situation, he wasn't just offering emotional support. He was the tactician, the bankroll, and the driving force. Blake's name was on the paperwork, but Ryan's influence was in the strategy.
Yes, I'm happy to. I filmed a response to this comment a couple hours ago. I took it down because I realized...
She was the shield, but he might have been the sword. From the moment the lawsuit hit the docket, both sides began moving like chess masters. Every filing, every statement, every leak to the press was deliberate, designed not only to sway a judge, but to feed an audience hungry for drama. In this fight, the courtroom was just one battlefield. The other was the public eye, where a single headline could tilt sympathy and change the outcome long before a verdict was reached.
They're doing it! they're like, you know what?
What the public didn't realize then was that this wasn't going to be a slow grind through the legal system. This was a rapid-fire exchange of attacks and counterattacks, each calculated to cause maximum damage. And in a town where careers live and die on reputation, the real danger wasn't losing in court, it was losing the narrative. The first rule in any high-profile legal fight is simple. If you control the story, you control the battlefield. And from the moment Blake's lawsuit became public, both camps understood that the headlines could be just as powerful as the evidence.
Back to our regularly scheduled programming. Today is a hot docket.
Blake's filings painted a vivid picture. She was the target of retaliation, harassment, and smear campaigns. In her version of events, she was standing up to a dangerous and abusive network, and every legal step she took was an act of self-defense. The language in her court documents was sharp, deliberate, and deeply emotional. It wasn't just legal argument, it was storytelling. Every paragraph seemed written with the knowledge that journalists, bloggers,
Blake Lively and Stephanie Jones together filed a joint motion last night to extend the fact
and millions of social media users would be reading. Her side framed the defendants, Wayfair, Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni, as aggressors who were weaponizing the legal system to silence and punish her. The tone was urgent, the stakes personal. And over time, that narrative began to stick. Repeated often enough, it started to shape how outsiders saw the case. Not as a complex, messy dispute between powerful players, but as a simple story of victim and villains.
Yeah, I saw this. In terms of the...
Meanwhile, the other side, Wayfair and the co-defendants, was playing a very different game. They avoided making bold public statements. They steered clear of dramatic claims in the press. In court, they focused on procedural responses, legal objections, and methodical filings. On the surface, it looked like restraint. But to Blake's team, it looked like weakness, and they capitalized on it. Whenever the defendants hesitated, Blake's lawyers filled the silence with their own version of events.
The theme of the world is that Blake Lively can't handle things that are said bad about her. And the truth is, if you don't have thick skin...
When the opposition made even the smallest mistake, an error in a filing, a misstep in timing, it was amplified. Every miscalculation was turned into proof that they were reckless, careless, or malicious. The defendants were constantly on the defensive, reacting instead of attacking. And in high-profile cases like this, passivity can be fatal. Because while they were playing it safe, Blake's side was feeding the narrative machine, one that thrived on headlines.
As she said here, right? I want to make sure I'm covering these sides, but she's like, yeah, we need these untraceable
viral posts and the kind of sound bites that spread like wildfire. It was becoming clear that this fight wasn't going to be decided solely by the evidence in a courtroom. The real trial was happening in public, and the jury was everyone watching. As the filings piled up and the headlines multiplied, a quieter conversation began swirling through Hollywood's back channels. One that didn't appear in court documents but was whispered in private calls, industry mixers, and hushed dinners.
Well, this does not look good for Blake Lively because she's refusing to participate in a neutral third-party investigation into her claim.
The theory? This wasn't truly Blake's war. Those who knew the couple well suspected that Ryan Reynolds was more than just a supportive husband watching from the sidelines. The rumor was that he was the architect, the strategist, whose influence and resources were fueling the fight. With his deep pockets, industry connections, and knack for shaping public perception, Ryan was uniquely positioned to wage a battle on multiple fronts. The timing of certain moves fed the speculation.
And given that there could have been no proper reason for Wayfair parties to have filed an entire transcript when...
Some believed that legal decisions made under Blake's name carried the kind of precision and budget that hinted at more than one mind at work. It didn't help that Ryan has a long history of crafting narratives, both in film marketing and in his own public persona. He knows how to spin a story, how to make the audience root for the underdog, and how to bury a rival under a flood of attention. In this case, Blake was the perfect public face, sympathetic, relatable, and easy for the media to frame as a victim. Ryan, if the whispers were true...
So it turns out Baldoni's lawsuit lawyers, Wayfair,
was the hidden general, directing the campaign while staying out of the direct line of fire. Critics of the couple pointed to the resources being poured into the litigation, suggesting that no expense was too high if it meant dismantling their opponents. Supporters dismissed it as conspiracy theory, just another way to undermine a woman standing up for herself. But in a town where image is everything, perception often becomes reality. And the perception here was dangerous. That a Hollywood power couple was using a lawsuit not just as a shield, but as a weapon.
We have learned that Blake Lively's deposition date is very soon. Today, Wayfair had filed a response to the Taylor Swift.
The deeper you look, the more the question shifts from what the lawsuit is about to who is really pulling the strings. And if Ryan truly is the force behind the curtain, then this isn't just about winning in court. It's about ensuring the opposition never recovers, inside or outside the legal system. In most high-stakes legal battles, every motion, every statement, every scrap of evidence is part of a calculated offensive. But in this case, the defendants, Wayfair, Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni,
I want everyone to have a clear understanding of how much money this case is costing Blake Lively.
Often seemed reluctant to strike back. Their approach was measured, procedural, almost cautious to a fault. On paper, it looked like discipline. They weren't lashing out. They weren't flooding the docket with retaliatory motions. They stuck to the rules, avoided personal attacks, and seemed focused on quietly dismantling Blake's claims through the formal process. But in a fight where the other side was aggressively shaping the narrative, that restraint came at a cost. Blake's legal team seized every gap in their offense.
Well, my friends, if you can believe it, it has only been 24 hours, and the tea today is actually even hotter than it was yesterday.
A missed opportunity to challenge a filing became proof of wrongdoing. A lack of aggressive counterclaims allowed her lawyers to position the defendants as too weak or too guilty to fight back. Even when Blake's motions could have been struck down for overreach or irrelevance, the defense often let them stand without protest. Some observers chalked this up to personality. Justin Baldoni, in particular, is known for his belief in empathy, compassion, and
As an employment attorney, what's the one claim that Blake Lively brought against Justin Baldoni that would
do no harm philosophy rooted in his faith? It's a commendable way to live, but in a legal war, it can be a dangerous handicap. Because while his side avoided being the aggressor, Blake's team had no such reservations. They pushed hard, they played to win, and they were unafraid to go for the jugular. The result was a lopsided fight in the court of public opinion. While the defense's silence was meant to project professionalism, it often came across as an admission of guilt.
Okay, I would never normally come on and do this type of video, but I am 31 minutes into the Baldoni.
And every time they did speak up, it was in reaction to Blake's moves, never on their own terms. In a conventional trial, that might be enough. But this wasn't conventional. This was a hybrid war, part legal chess match, part PR blitz. And in that kind of battle, silence doesn't just fail to protect you. It can be turned into a weapon against you. For months, the legal fight had been a series of careful moves and counter moves. But then came a moment that shifted the momentum. One miscalculation that Blake's team pounced on instantly.
One thing that people aren't talking about that I'm actually shocked about, Justin Wayfair bought the rights to this movie. It's my understanding.
It started with a deposition, a tense, hours-long session where Blake answered questions under oath. Normally, in a legal filing, only the specific, relevant excerpts from such a deposition are included, just a page or two to support an argument. But in this case, the defense attached the entire 292-page transcript as an exhibit. To most outsiders, it might have seemed like an overly thorough move, but in the courtroom, it was highly unusual. So unusual that even seasoned legal watchers admitted they'd never seen it done this way.
Remember the Blake Lively lawsuit? It's always nice to refresh and go back to...
And Blake's lawyers seized on it. They argued that including the full transcript wasn't about making a legal point at all. It was a deliberate attempt to burden her and invite public scandal. The judge agreed. In a sharp rebuke, he ruled that the inclusion of the entire deposition served no proper litigation purpose and ordered it struck from the record. Worse, his written decision echoed some of Blake's key talking points, that the defense was misusing the court docket to harm her reputation.
So somebody is trying to anonymously file a motion to quash the Google subpoena, and the judge is not happy.
That ruling was more than a procedural setback. It was a narrative victory. In one stroke, Blake's team had reframed the defendants not as cautious professionals, but as aggressors playing dirty in the shadows. And because the judge's language mirrored that framing, it carried extra weight in the public eye. It didn't matter that the defense insisted they weren't trying to smear her. In the court of public opinion, perception is reality. And the perception now was that Blake had been wronged again. Proof, her supporters argued, that she was under siege.
Well, my friends, if you can believe it, it has only been 24 hours, and the tea today is actually even hotter than it was yesterday.
From every angle. For the defense, it was a frustrating turn. They could have challenged Blake's own questionable filings in the past. They could have struck parts of her motions, demanded sanctions, or gone on the offensive. But they didn't. And when they finally made a move that could be painted as aggressive, it blew up in their faces. If the courtroom was one battlefield, the media quickly became another. And unlike the structured world of legal filings, the media war was messy, unpredictable, and fueled by personality. It was here that the case spilled over into the hands of
Justin Baldoni's attorney just announced that they are gearing up to file their lawsuit against Blake Lively, and they plan to release every
influencers, commentators, and digital watchdogs, each with their own take on the unfolding drama. One of the most visible figures caught in the crossfire was celebrity blogger Perez Hilton. Known for his unfiltered commentary and decades-long history of stirring Hollywood conversations, Perez wasn't just reporting on the case, he was becoming part of it. He shared updates, echoed reports from other creators, and at times injected his own biting opinions into the mix. Blake's legal team didn't ignore it. They pulled his statements into the narrative.
Here's why I think that an online smear campaign against Blake Lively is worth it to someone.
Framing them as further evidence of a coordinated smear campaign. The more Perez spoke, the easier it became for them to position him as part of the problem, even if, as he insisted, he was acting entirely on his own. And Perez didn't hold back. In letters to the court, he used the kind of language that makes for viral headlines but raises eyebrows in legal circles, mocking attorneys, giving the judge sarcastic nicknames, and making blunt accusations about bias. His supporters saw it as fearless honesty.
Well, my friends, if you can believe it, it has only been 24 hours, and the tea today is actually even hotter than it was yesterday.
His critics saw it as reckless self-sabotage. For Blake's side, however, it was a gift. Every sharp word or over-the-top insult could be clipped, quoted, and held up as proof that she was being targeted, harassed, and demeaned. In a case where perception was half the battle, this was ammunition they didn't have to fire themselves. Meanwhile, for the defendants, the involvement of outside voices was a double-edged sword. On one hand, independent commentary kept public interest alive and occasionally challenged Blake's narrative. On the other,
Blake Lively allegedly admitted to having feelings for Justin Baldoni in the deposition for the lawsuit.
It gave her team an easy way to lump all criticism together, blurring the line between official legal actions and what bloggers or influencers were saying online. By now, the lawsuit wasn't just about legal strategy. It had become a full-blown media circus, where every Instagram story, YouTube video, or Twitter thread could be spun into evidence. The courtroom might decide the legal verdict. But in the media crossfire, the verdict was changing every day. By this stage, the case had evolved far beyond the typical boundaries of a courtroom battle.
Blake Lively allegedly admitted to having feelings for Justin Baldoni in the deposition for the lawsuit.
It wasn't just lawyers and witnesses anymore. It was influencers, bloggers, social media threads, and endless waves of public commentary. And much of it was getting personal. The filings had started to read less like formal legal documents and more like open letters to the internet. Sarcastic jabs, loaded nicknames, and outright accusations were making their way into the official record. What might get laughs or clicks online was suddenly in black and white before a federal judge.
Blake Lively slams Perez Hilton in court for calling her Ku Klux Khaleesi. By the way, shout out to...
And that was a problem. The tipping point came when the rhetoric crossed a line. Letters to the court included language mocking Blake's attorneys, questioning the judge's fairness, and even giving her derogatory nicknames. Whether those words were meant as venting, performance, or both, they landed exactly where they shouldn't have, in the judge's lap. That's when Judge Lyman issued a blunt and unmistakable warning. In a formal order, he reminded everyone, lawyers, parties, and even those representing themselves, that courtroom submissions were not social media posts. He made it clear.
This made me laugh. She was hired on as a lead actress for a movie, and she manipulated.
Disrespect toward the court, counsel, or opposing parties would not be tolerated. Demeaning nicknames, accusations of bias, or language designed to inflame could result in sanctions, or worse, contempt of court. And contempt isn't just a slap on the wrist. In extreme cases, it can mean fines or even jail time. The judge didn't name names in the warning, but the message was loud enough for everyone to hear. The theatrics had to stop. For Blake's team, the order was a subtle win. It put their opponents and any outspoken commentators on high alert.
This is Jamie Heath, CEO of Wayfair, Justin Baldoni's best friend and business partner.
Forcing them to measure every word for fear it could be used against them. For those already under stress, it added another layer of pressure, making it even easier for Blake to maintain her victim narrative if someone slipped again. The tone of the case shifted after that. The loudest voices grew quieter. The filings became more restrained, but the tension was still there, pressurized, simmering beneath the surface. Because while the judge could control what happened on the docket, he couldn't control what happened in the shadows, in the whispers, and on the platforms that had been fueling this fight from the very beginning.
Well, I just really love romance, and I love it as an audience member, and I love it in my real.
Strip away the legal jargon, the PR spin, and the endless court filings, and what's left is something far more human and far more unsettling. This case isn't just about contracts or defamation. It's about control. To those watching closely, Blake's strategy has followed a familiar pattern, the kind often seen in conflicts with narcissists. Push the other side into a corner, provoke them until they react. Then, the moment they slip, hold up that reaction as proof of aggression. It's a cycle that turns defense into apparent guilt.
You're also, the last time you were talking about the movie It Ends With Us, which has turned into a big major story between.
And it's devastatingly effective in the court of public opinion. Every harsh filing from a blogger, every procedural misstep by the defense, every sarcastic comment from a frustrated party, Blake's team could frame it as another example of harassment. And because she remained the public face of the case, the image of a wronged woman battling relentless attacks only grew stronger. Meanwhile, the defendants were caught in a psychological trap. Fight too hard and you look like the aggressor. Stay silent and your opponent fills the silence with their own version of events.
I love finding a way to infuse little Easter eggs into the film because, of course, we can't put everything from the book into the movie. So something.
Either way, the narrative tightens around you like a noose. This is why her critics call it the narcissist playbook. It's not just about winning the legal case. It's about winning the perception war so completely that even if you lose in court, you've already destroyed your opponent's reputation. And in Hollywood, where careers are built and broken on image, that can be a more permanent victory than any verdict. But here's the question that lingers long after the court adjourns. Is this really just one woman's ruthless strategy? Or is it the combined precision of a power couple who know exactly how to bend public perception to their will? If that's the case, then maybe the real trial isn't happening in the courthouse at all. Maybe it's happening right now in every headline, every post, and every whispered conversation in an industry that lives and dies on stories.